Welcome back to the class Analysis of the Facial Beauty. As I said in the last week lecture, we are going to talk about the traditional facial measurements. As an interdisciplinary research topic, facial beauty can be investigated and understood from many aspects. An important issue is to determine features closely associated with facial beauty. In today's lecture, after introducing conventional features for facial beauty analysis, we also briefly touch the contemporary typical facial beauty analysis methods. The history and literature shows that researchers favor different methods. Some researchers believe that facial beauty underlies in the golden ratio. Some other interested in the averageness and symmetry hypothesis. Recently, biometric techniques are also utilized for facial beauty analysis. In today's lecture, I will give a review of the typical or traditional facial beauty analysis method and discusses the advantages and limitations of them. This preliminary knowledge on traditional methods for facial beauty analysis will give you a more thorough understanding of the following novel methods. The secret of facial beauty has attracted the attention of artists and researchers for a long time. In ancient times, some sculptors and painters believed that the golden ratio is underlying beautiful faces. In ancient China, the vertical thirds and horizontal fifths rule was proposed. Since 1990s, the study of facial beauty perception has been popular in the psychology field. Some influential hypotheses, such as the averageness hypothesis, have been proposed and numerous studies have been reported and published. Facial beauty study has attracted the attention of computer science in 2000. Biometric techniques have been used for facial beauty modeling and developing real-life application systems. In the following, we will talk about some of those traditional beliefs and measurements. Let's begin with the golden ratio rules. The golden ratio 1.618, also called the divine proportion, can be seen in art, architecture, fashion, birds, insects, and flowers, and so on, and has been believed to underlie the human body since the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci's drawing, Human Figure in a Circle, is a great example of illustrating the golden ratio of the human body as you see in the screen. The famous painting Mona Lisa also embodies the golden ratio as you can see in the screen now. It is also believed to underlie beautiful faces. Marquardt proposed an ideal face template based on the golden ratio, which is called the phi mask, as shown in this screen. It is exciting to set up a universal standard for facial beauty. However, many measurement-based studies show that the golden ratio is not related with facial beauty. In other words, most beautiful faces do not conform to the golden ratio rules. Also, in many cases, the golden ratio exceeds the normal range of the facial ratios. In 2012, Fan and colleagues generated a 3D synthesized face model that conformed to as many golden ratios as possible, but only obtained a below average ratings in their perception experiment. The golden ratio rules are the idealized description of the facial beauty. Although they are not accurate, the idea of using ratios to understand the facial beauty has been accepted throughout the world and history. The ideal values of the ratio can be corrected according to the measurements on the target population. The corrected ratios still serve as references in today's aesthetic surgery plans. Moreover, the ratios are also taken as features for facial beauty modeling and automatic facial beauty prediction. The next traditional facial measurement is vertical thirds and horizontal fifths. The vertical thirds and horizontal fifths rules were proposed in ancient China. As you can see in the screen, the vertical thirds rules divide the length of the face into three parts of equal length, from hairline to eyebrow, from eyebrow to nasal floor, and from nasal floor to chin. The horizontal rules divide the width of the face into five parts of equal widths, in other words, the width of one eye. Faces that conform to the rules are not considered to be beautiful in ancient China. Similar to golden ratio rules, it is limited to the measuring technique of ancient time. The vertical thirds and horizontal fifths rules are not accurate enough. Beautiful faces do not often conform to these rules, especially in contemporary thoughts of nowadays. However, the ratios defined in these rules can be taken or referred to as features for even contemporary facial beauty modeling. The third traditional thoughts are the averageness hypothesis. In psychology, averageness is the most investigated general pattern of facial beauty. The averageness effect was first found by Francis Galton at the end of the 19th century. In 1878, he overlaid multiple images of face onto a single photographic plate and observed that the composite image was more attractive than the component face. Over a century later, Langlois and Ragman in 1990 used the computer-generated composite face to examine the correlation between the averageness and facial attractiveness. They found that both male and female composite faces were judged as more attractive than almost all the individual faces used to generate them, and that the composite faces became more attractive as more faces were entered. Similar results were obtained when examining faces from other cultures by Apicella and colleagues in 2007. These studies suggested that the averageness is positively correlated with facial attractiveness. The screen shows 4 individual facial images and a computer-generated average face. Studies on babies revealed that the preference of facial averageness could be considered as biological rather than cultural. Newborn infants will gaze longer at attractive faces than at unattractive ones, and infants respond to average faces in the same way as they respond to attractive faces. Moreover, the ability to extract the average from a set of realistic facial images operates from an early age, and it is almost instinctive. Many researchers interpret the preference for facial averageness from the evolutionary perspective. In 1993, Thornhill and Gangestad argued that the average faces may be preferred to less average faces because owners of average faces possess a more diverse set of genes, which may result in less common proteins to which pathogens are properly adapted. Parasites are generally best adapted to proteins that are common in the host population, and hence parasites are adapted to the genes that code for the production of these proteins. Another evolutionary theory for the preference for the averageness in face is that extreme genotypes are more likely to homozygous for deleterious allele. In 2001, Rose and colleagues showed that the facial averageness is positively related to medical health as measured from actual medical records in both men and women. Facial averageness can then be potentially associated with both direct benefits in terms of associating with healthy, parasite, or disease-free partners and indirect benefits of heterozygous genes that can be passed on to offsprings. Despite these findings, the averageness hypothesis has to face many doubts and challenges. For example, one challenge is that the attractiveness of average composite faces may be due to the other factor co-varying with the averaging operation, such as smoothened skin texture and the improved symmetry of the average composite faces, as argued by Alley and Cunningham in 1991. In order to investigate the effect of the individual factors on facial beauty, some researchers separately manipulated the averageness of shape and texture. In their experiment, it was reported that the individual faces wrapped into an average face shape were rated as more attractive than the original, and that decreasing averageness by moving the face away from the average face shapes decreased attractiveness. These results show that the skin smoothness is not only the determinant of the attractiveness of average face. Some researchers dissociate symmetry and averageness in facial beauty perception experiment and showed that the symmetry positively contributes to facial beauty, but it cannot solely explain the attractiveness of the average faces. Another challenge is whether all attractive faces satisfy the averageness of hypothesis. In 1994, Perret and colleagues found that both men and women considered that a face averaged from a set of attractive faces were more appealing than one averaged from a wide range of the women's faces, which implies that the attractive faces have other types. Like these examples in screen, the composite faces generated by common and attractive Caucasian and Asian in composite original photo can be preferred, which agrees with Perret's finding. Hence, average faces are only usually attractive. However, these results do not mean that all attractive faces are average or that average faces are optimally attractive. To summarize, averageness is positively correlated with facial beauty, but it is not the only determinant. Average faces are attractive but not optimally attractive. Facial beauty perception is complex. Although the averageness hypothesis is influential and has some evolutionary explanations, it is still very limited in defining facial beauty. The next one is the facial symmetry and beauty perception. Facial symmetry is another well-investigated trait of facial beauty. From an evolutionary perspective, symmetry may act as a marker of phenotypic and genetic quality and is preferred during mate selection in a variety of species. Fluctuating asymmetries are non-directional or random deviation from perfect symmetry in bilaterally paired traits. In non-human animals, fluctuating asymmetry in body traits reflects developmental instability and increase with inbreeding, homozygosity, parasite load, poor nutrition, and pollution. Also in human, body fluctuating asymmetry increases with inbreeding, premature birth, psychosis, and mental retardation. If similar relationship exists for facial fluctuating asymmetry, then they could signal mate quality. Methodology of symmetry hypothesis research is similar to that of averageness hypothesis. Symmetric facial images are generated using image processing techniques, which serve as a group of stimuli, and the corresponding original facial images serve as the other group of stimuli. Participants are asked to compare and select the more attractive one between a pair of stimuli. The conclusion, in other words, whether symmetry positively correlated with facial beauty is made according to the statistical analysis of the experimental results. However, conclusions on the symmetry hypothesis are controversial. Some studies suggested that the normal face with fluctuating asymmetries are preferred to perfectly symmetric versions, whereas some other studies found that the perfectly symmetric faces were more attractive than the original, slightly asymmetric faces. Another point of view is that even though symmetry is positively correlated with facial beauty, it is not the major determinant factor according to the Shipe and colleagues' research in 1999. In other words, symmetric faces are not necessarily attractive. Although the amount of effect of symmetry on facial attractiveness is still unclear, the symmetry has been widely used as an additional feature in current facial attractive calculation and modeling. The quantification of facial asymmetry based on 2D and 3D image has been investigated in 2014 by several scientists. For 2D images, horizontal distance from a vertical reference line, such as a median sagittal line, and vertical distance from a horizontal reference line, and the horizontal direction between centers of bilateral points are used to measure the facial asymmetry. The proper selection and identification of the reference point is crucial. For highest accuracy, a sufficient number of evenly distributed and reproducible reference points should be used. If 3D point clouds are available, the point cloud representing the face is firstly mirrored at an initial plane, which approximately corresponds to the median sagittal plane of the face. Subsequently, the mirrored copy is matched, or more technically speaking, registered to the original version of the face using iterative closest point algorithm, aka ICP algorithm. The third step of the procedure consists in estimating a median sagittal plane. These three steps are repeated several times. The matching process is then repeated with the remaining surface parts. The best fit plane of the last iteration is desired estimate of the median sagittal symmetry plane. Local asymmetry are obtained as the distance between the original cloud and its repeatedly mirrored and registered copy. Move on to the current techniques. We are talking about the facial beauty analysis by biometric technique. In computer science society, beauty is treated as a characteristic of human face, such as identity, age, and expression, and biometric techniques have been used for facial beauty analysis for a long time. A typical facial beauty analysis system contains 4 modules as shown in the screen. The main issues in biometrics-based facial beauty analysis include: Number 1. Build databases for facial beauty analysis and applications. Number 2. Decide which facial features work well for facial beauty analysis. Number 3. Build computational models that are able to map the facial features to a facial beauty score. Number 4. Develop applications using the result of the facial beauty analysis. In the following, we will review the recent developments of the above issues and introduce the corresponding contents. First, we are talking about the databases used in existing works. To the best of our knowledge, there has been no public databases established for facial beauty study. Most of the databases used in existing works were collected by the authors. A database for facial beauty study requires 2 types of data, that is, facial images and their corresponding beauty scores. The facial images can be obtained from 3 sources. Number 1. Frontal portrait captured by a photographer. These images are often captured in a controlled environment with similar illumination conditions and image qualities. However, the number of images is limited and very beautiful faces are scarce in this database. Number 2. Facial images collected from the internet, which can provide not only plenty of facial images but also those of well-known beautiful faces. A major challenge is related to the large variability and low quality of the image collected. That is to say, they have different resolutions, orientations, illumination conditions, and facial expressions. Number 3. Synthesized facial images. The advantage of this database is that the data generation can be controlled. However, these images are unrealistic. The beauty scores of the collected facial images are usually measured by the average human ratings. Obtaining human ratings is a labor-intensive and time-consuming work. This problem is not obvious for small databases, but when the size of the database increases, it is difficult to obtain enough human ratings, usually. To solve this problem, researchers often relied on the images taken from internet sites such as the halonaut.com that allow users to rate, on a 10-point scale, the attractiveness of photos voluntarily submitted by others. Most databases contain only female images, is another problem. The table is a summary of the database used in the existing works. Another issue we should discuss is the facial feature extraction. The core of the facial beauty analysis is to discover the relationship between low-level visual features and high-level perceived attractiveness. Effective features can promote the performance of the facial beauty analysis, such as a facial beauty assessment and facial beauty manipulation. Many types of features have been adopted in existing works. According to the embedded information, the feature can be divided into geometric features and appearance features. The ratio suggested by putative rules, for example, the golden ratio rule, the neoclassical canons, and horizontal fifths and vertical thirds are typical geometric features which are often to assess the facial beauty. Given a training data set, author can build computational model using the ratio features as dependent variable. It was found that although ratio-based models are capable of reproducing the average human judgment to some extent, only a small set of ratio features is important for prediction of facial attractiveness, according to the study of the Schmidt and colleagues performed in 2008. And the putative ideal ratio values are not accurate. Shape is another type of geometric feature, which is represented by the concatenated x and y coordinates of series of facial landmarks. The ratio features can be calculated given the shape feature, and hence the shape feature contains more information than the ratio. In addition, averageness and symmetry are also adopted as supplementary features in facial beauty assessment. Appearance feature contains the information of the whole image. Most of them are inspired from the face recognition studies, including eigenface, Gable filter responses by Liu and Wessler study in 2002, and local binary patterns by Ohonen study in 2006. According to the characteristics, the features can be divided into holistic features and local features. Shape, eigenface, averageness, and symmetry are holistic features, whereas ratios, Gable filter responses, and local binary patterns are local features. Researchers also combine multiple types of facial features to build facial beauty models. For example, Eisenthal and colleagues in 2006 and Kajian and colleagues in 2008 combined geometric features, hair color, and skin smoothness into regression model. Nguyen study in 2013 concatenated local binary patterns, gave her filter responses, color moment, shape context, and shape parameters as a feature vectors and applied principal component analysis to reduce the dimensionalities. Although very many handcrafted features have been used in facial beauty analysis, few works compared the discriminative power of different types of features and optimized the feature set. For further study topics, we could deal with the facial feature extraction, comparison, and fusion strategies for facial beauty analysis. Currently, extensive experiments are carried out, new features are tested and compared, and an optimal feature set could be obtained. Finally, we are talking about the modeling methods. To build a computational model of facial beauty, the general approach is number one, preparing a training data set, including facial images and their corresponding beauty scores. Number two, extract facial features from the facial images which are supposed to be related to facial beauty. And number three, build a model by supervised learning techniques. Given a set of feature vectors and beauty scores, multivariate linear regression and support vector regression, aka SVR, have often been used to learn the beauty. More recently, with the development of the machine learning field, new methods have been proposed for facial beauty modeling. Facial beauty models are evaluated by Pearson correlation between machine-predicted beauty scores and human-rated beauty scores. Due to different databases and features and learning method used, the reported performances of the model are different in a range from 0.45 to 0.8. Still unsatisfactory but promising score. The facial beauty analysis has many applications, such as social networks, image editing software, animation, design and arts, and plastic aesthetic surgeries and cosmetic industries. Facial beauty assessment and automatic face beautification are the key problems in the real applications. The former is a straight application of facial beauty models. For face beautification, there are two representative works, although at this time they are somewhat obsolete. In 2008, Levant and colleagues proposed a surface vector regression-based method to beautify facial geometry, which first trained the beauty model and then modified the geometric features to increase the beauty score predicted by the model. In 2010, Melachi and colleagues prepared a set of beautiful faces and proposed beautifying the geometry of query face by the weighted average of its k nearest neighbors in the training set. Okay, it's time to summarize our lectures. In this lecture, I surveyed the typical research methods of the facial beauty analysis. First, the study of the golden ratio rules, the averageness hypothesis, and the symmetry hypothesis are reviewed. The main conclusion of these studies are summarized and the limitations of these methods are discussed. Then we survey biometric-based facial beauty analysis methods which contain our key issues, such as database, feature extraction, modeling, and applications. Recent progress on these issues is also briefly reviewed. Despite those progresses, the studies on biometric-based facial beauty analysis are still at primary stage. However, the database science are quite rapidly dominating our science field nowadays. The further progresses will be soon graspable, and our dental personnel should keep an eye on this advance. A number of issues require further effort. Building a large-scale public databases for fair comparison of different methods is necessary. This kind of work can be considered kind of commercial research rather than an academic. However, it is a bit awkward to hesitate the study just due to the reason, since many serendipities happen in the history of research. Probably there are many more reasons to support my opinion. Comprehensive comparison of different types of feature selection, and feature fusion strategy needs more research. New machine learning techniques are expected to be applied to the topic of facial beauty analysis. Also, facial geometry beautification and facial appearance beautification are very interesting topics to be studied. Okay, this is the end of this lecture. As an assignment, please select the contemporary two beautiful person, at least male and female each, in your own thought, not by spiritual criteria, but by appearance itself. If possible, the current idols or celebrities in your cultural area are recommended for your selection. They don't necessarily have the same nationality with you. And collect their photos that are suitable for traditional analysis we discussed today. Probably the exact frontal facial photo would be the best material for you. Then perform the 3 traditional analysis on their photos and report the result until the next class. The analysis you should use are the golden ratio, and vertical third and horizontal fifths, and symmetry. You could submit to Soyeon's mail, our teaching assistant. And another information is, as a makeup lectures of 2 weeks, I will upload 2 video clips. For your attendance confirmation, don't forget to watch both on the ETL platform. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.